Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. My name is Dorinda and today we are going to be going over all the books I read in February. What? That's not true. We are going to be going over all the books I read in March. Now, March was not the best reading month for me, and that has a lot to do with the fact that I read a lot of books because of reading vlogs that I wasn't really in the mood for, but I was kind of like forced to read, and that really put me almost in a book slump, kind of. Like, I feel like I'm not in a book slump. I still have that passion and drive to read. It was definitely making me feel like I don't want to read these books. So let's talk about them. I'm sure you're curious because I have a lot to say about these books. Before we dive into the books, let's go over some of our stats. So I did read 11 books in March, which is so exciting. I read 1 nonfiction book, 2 romance books, 1 fantasy, which is insane that I only read 1 fantasy. I feel like that has a lot to do with the fact that I was not enjoying my month too much. I read 2 sci-fi books and 5 fiction. Now these fiction are like a wide range of fiction. There's some historical fiction, there's some women's fiction, and there's some Christian fiction. I'm also going to be adding my spice rankings on the screen for you guys. So this is my spice ranking system if you're curious, and I'm always going to have it down below in the description box if you want to refer back to it. This month is going to be a little bit different. I will be talking about the books in each genre category, so please feel free to skip ahead. Like always, I will always have timestamps below. We have a lot of books to talk about, so let's just hop right in. Oh, for a second I thought it was saying my camera is dead. I'm like, no, I just started. So the one fantasy book that I read this month was An Ember in the Ashes by Sybil, and I rated this book 4 stars. Now this book was sitting on my TBR for so long and I'm really happy I got to it. I'm really excited to continue the series. It was a lot more darker than I was expecting. It is a YA fantasy novel and it started off with a bang of being really dark, and there's a lot of things that happened in this book that I was just really surprised about. And what our main character was going through was really challenging. I know we are following like a dual perspective, but the female and what she was going through in particular was really hard to read about it sometimes, so definitely keep that in mind if you are younger and you want to read this book. The magic system in this was really interesting. I'm curious to see how we dive more into it as the series continues, because so far the magic system is really just like these masks that people wear, and there are some characters that also have like some magical powers that maybe we'll expand on in the future. But overall, I thought that this book was really fun. Really enjoyed like the trials in this book. The last time I read a trial book was The Prison Healer, and I was not a fan of those trials, and the trials in this are actually high stakes and they keep getting harder and harder as the trials go on, which is really interesting. I really did enjoy the dual perspectives that we're following because the different characters that we're following are in different spectrums of the world. Like one of them is part of like the hierarchy in this world, and then one of them is part of the resistance in this world. And I really enjoyed that. I loved how we could see both aspects of this war going on. I do want to say, because there is a romance subplot that's going on, it was quite strange romance subplot because both people had people in their life that made sense that they would be romantically interested in and that they were attracted to, which kind of threw me off. Like I feel like usually the author makes it pretty obvious that this is our love interest, but not in this book. And it wasn't like a love triangle. It was like a 4 love triangle type of situation. It was really weird. And it made me feel like, who am I rooting for? Like, should I be rooting for these people, like our main characters, or should I be rooting for these other couplings? So that was really different and interesting. Overall, I'm really excited to continue this series. I'm very curious to see how it goes. I have heard mixed reviews of the second 2 books, but I've heard the last one is really good and concludes the series. I guess it's actually considered a quartet. Nonetheless, I'm very excited to move on. The first one that I read was actually Dune by Frank Herbert, and this was one of the books that my husband picked for me in my Husband Picks What I Read vlog, and I was a little bit intimidated to get into this book. I was kind of pushing it off. I almost actually picked it for my March TBR because it was like fitting in a lot of the prompts, but I ended up not picking it, and I kind of feel like I should have because I ended up reading it anyway. But if you're not familiar with Dune, which I'm sure you might be, we are following Paul and his family, and they move to Arrakis, which is this like abandoned almost planet. It's not like abandoned because they do have people that live there called the Freemen, but on this planet there is a lot of spice. So there's a lot of spice production, and spice is something that fuels the economy of this world, of these different planets. I think it's not only used for space travel, but it's also used for like prophecy and seeing like different visions and stuff like that. I'm not too sure. Even though I've seen the movie and I read the book, I still feel like I'm not quite grasping the concept of spice. All I know is that people want it, and it costs a lot of money, and the whole government empire is really like wrapped around this, involving this. They want that, like they want control of it. His family moves to Arrakis and they basically are trying to be like the rulers of Arrakis, but stuff happens. doesn't go as planned, and we follow Paul as he and his mother navigate getting along with the Freemans and also trying to overcome and take over the Empire. This book was really interesting because there was a lot of talk about the Messiah trope, but the Messiah trope in this book was quite different than we usually see in other books. I think like usually it's like the chosen one, he's a hero, he's a good guy, like this is prophetic. In this book, it was like a manipulated Messiah trope. His mother is from these Bene Gesserit and ejectories. I don't really know how to say it, but they are these women who are very powerful. They have like these mind tricks, these mind powers that are powerful. words. And they basically pre-planted this prophecy of who Paul would be and even who the mom would be so that he would be accepted by the Freemans. Essentially, he falls into that and we're following that. So that was quite interesting. I also really liked the talk of how these Freemen survive on this planet that has like no water. Like they take water so seriously. Like even like spitting on people is like a sign of respect because they're giving up their water freely. I liked this book, but at the same time, I didn't like this book. I don't know. It wasn't as intense as I thought it would be. I think it's a really well done book. Like the writing was really well. I really liked the story. I liked the world. I liked following Paul. I liked following the complexities of what's going on and like the religion, the political and everything like that. I just felt like when I was reading it, it was kind of mediocre in the way that it was gripping me and the way that, especially towards the end, I was feeling towards it. I was kind of like, just like, okay, whatever. Very fast paced towards the end. Like I feel like things were not stretched out as much as they could have been. It's like we jumped a lot of time that I wish that we would have explored. So there's just that about it. I don't know if I said what I rated it, but obviously you probably see it on the screen. I rated it a 4.25. So it was a good book. I just think it was kind of lacking towards the end and how much I was enjoying the plot is essentially all I gotta say. Next book that I read was Recursion by Blake Crouch. And I was so excited to get into this book. Like this was a highly anticipated book. And I ended up rating this book 3.75 stars. And before I say anything, I feel like the plot of this book is really interesting. And I definitely think it's like worth the shot. 3.75 is not a bad rating. I just did not connect to the characters of this book. And I feel like you kind of have to at least a little bit. We are following a detective who ends up investigating these different people who are having false memories of a life that they never lived. When we start the story, we see one of the women who is suffering from this, and it's quite sad what happens. And it's very interesting. Like you're gripped. You're like, what is going on? And simultaneously, you're also following a plot of another character. This is a woman who is working on a technology for Alzheimer's to kind of store people's memories so that they can be like injected with the memories in the future when they're suffering with Alzheimer's in hopes to like combat the disease, that they can harness these memories that they would have lost otherwise, which was really interesting. Following her in a past timeline and then you're following him in like the present timeline, and then you kind of see how like their past obviously interconnect. And this book, it was very interesting. I felt like this book could have gone in a different direction that I wish it kind of would have went. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to like give up the ending of the story. The ending of the story though was excruciating. Like I think it like dragged on just a little bit. Like I was like, okay, let's go again. Okay, let's go again. Okay, what's going on? I was kind of concerned that this book wasn't going to wrap up. I was a little bit nervous there. This book is really interesting though, because we do have a lot of talk about like quantum physics, Mandela effect, even like DMT and how it impacts our brain. Because if you don't know, like DMT is like released when we die, quote unquote. I think it's also released when we're dreaming, but there's a lot of like science talk. Obviously it's a science fiction book. I felt like the structure of this book, what was laid out, what we were given in this book was really interesting. And I did enjoy it. People say if you like Interstellar, you probably would like this book. I definitely agree with that. It definitely gave me those vibes. I do want to point out that there is a lot of like vulgar language in this book and a lot of intense things. So definitely look up trigger warnings. But overall, I definitely think it was a really interesting book. I definitely think it's worth the read. Like you may love this book. I think I was just lacking in the connection and I think it dragged on just a little bit. The first book is The Four Engagement Rings of Sybil by Hannah Brown. Now, this book was interesting. So I don't want to show my rating because I actually am coming out with a reading vlog that's going to be coming out in April. So I kind of want to keep that a surprise. All I can say about this book is it is so lusty for a no spice romance book. You know when you're reading a book and every chapter is just filled with lusty conversation, lusty thoughts, lusty topics, and it's just like, oh my gosh, leave it alone. I was not expecting that, especially coming from Hannah Brown. So if you don't know, Hannah Brown claims to be a Christian, so I figured that her book would not be like super sexualized, and it was. I feel like there was a lot of sexualization in this book, which I really didn't enjoy. I also think the female main lead in this is really insufferable and super entitled, and I did not enjoy reading about that. There is some representation of something that is really hard that that women go through, and I do enjoy that part of this book. I also really enjoyed the Hawaii setting. This book, I was so surprised on whenever I picked it up. I felt like I was transported back to my honeymoon, and I really enjoyed that. It definitely made me want to read this book, amped up the reading experience a little bit because I just absolutely love Hawaii, so that was so fun. I didn't even say the plot synopsis of this book, but essentially we are following our main character, Sybil, and she decides to go on her honeymoon, quote unquote, not exactly her honeymoon, but she goes where she would have gone on her honeymoon because she was left at the altar, and she actually runs into her ex on her honeymoon, and she decides that she's going to pretend that she's a boyfriend because he's with a coworker who she thinks is like his girlfriend, and her other ex fiance is also in Hawaii, so she pretends fake dates him to make her ex jealous. There's definitely a lot of drama going on in regards to that, but I felt like our main character was really sweet. I kind of felt bad for him. I felt for him, and I just felt like Sybil just did not understand him, and it kind of just like made me upset. So wasn't my favorite read. I would probably not recommend. But yeah, you're not gonna get my rating, so definitely watch my vlog in a couple weeks. Next romance book that I read is Just Friends by Haley Pham, and also I'm not gonna be sharing the rating because this is also in my reading vlog, but I do want to say I actually enjoy this book more than I thought I would. I was a little bit nervous going into it. I know there's a lot of hate going around about her writing in this book. I feel like people were exaggerating a little bit too much. I definitely think there was definitely times where she used words that people are saying like are thesaurus based words. She could have used a different word, like instead of using conglomerate or whatever that word is, she could have used group. I understand, but it really didn't bother me, and I didn't really notice it other than that one time because people pointed it out. I don't know if I would have noticed it if people didn't point it out beforehand. We are following our main character Blair, and she ends up going back to her hometown in Seabrook because her aunt is falling ill and is unfortunately passing away, and she runs into her ex/childhood friend Declan at a coffee shop, and she ends up working with him, and there's some close proximity. This is also definitely heavy on like a woman's fiction. We're following someone who's dealing with grief in a lot of different ways. I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. It was surprising how much I could relate to Blair and her grief, especially like we have a scene in a funeral home, and I was like, wow, you really took the words outside of my mouth. You really took the words from my mouth because that was really well done and how she said that. I really do also enjoy that this is a closed-door romance. That was really fun. I really did enjoy Seabrook's town. It was very easy to imagine, and I was like, wow, I want to go there, and it's really cool that it's actually based on a real town in California. This was definitely giving me like Disney Channel movie vibes. I feel like Declan is that stereotypical high school guy whose dad wants him to fulfill his dreams that he didn't fulfill, and he's trying to live up to those expectations. Like, that was Declan. I overall thought it was a cute book, and I definitely think Haley deserves more love than she's getting, and I'm excited to see what else she comes up with. The first one is actually a book that I don't own, and it's The Scarlet Thread by Francine Rivers. And this book is actually a Christian fiction / kind of romance, but honestly, I would definitely say it's more of like a woman's fiction. We are essentially following our female main lead in her marriage and her marriage struggles, and how she kind of just gets pulled to a place that she doesn't really want to go to, and how that impacts her marriage and what happens after that. Listen, I love Francine Rivers, and this book was just not it for me, unfortunately. I rated this book 3.25 stars. This has a cheating trope in it. Like, I get the representation. I know Francine Rivers likes to talk about really tough subjects. Like, she's talked about prostitution, she's talked about abortion, she's talked about slavery, she's talked about now cheating, and she's talked about a lot. She's talked about a lot. She's even talked about like single mother. So I really appreciate her representation of different types of scenarios that people fall into and how we can navigate them as a Christian. But this one was just not the way that I would have liked how she talked about it. I feel like we were justifying the cheating. I feel like our female main character, she just didn't get what she deserved. I know that there's people in my life that I've heard their story about how their husband and their significant other cheated on them, and then like God redeemed that. And like, that is amazing. Like, that's like awesome for them. But like, the way that she described in this book was just not awesome. And we're dealing with a lot. Like, the main character goes through a lot, and it was just really hard to read about. It was just not my favorite Francine Rivers book. I definitely think like it's worth a shot. Like, I know people that really like it, so maybe pick it up if you're interested. But for me, it was not good. It was no bueno. Next fictional book that I read was Go as a River by Shelley Reed. Now, this book was an unexpected love. This book I ended up rating like a 4.5, 4.75 star. I love this book. I definitely think it started off slow, and that's why it's not a 5-star, but the ending hit me like a train. I bawled like a baby reading this book because the ending just met me where I'm at, the season of life where I'm at as a mom of a boy. It really just hit me. If you are a mom, beware, this book might hit your emotions. Pretty hard. pretty hardcore. We're essentially following our female main lead, and it's a coming of age story, so we follow her throughout a large period of time of her life. We see her on her family's peach farm and how she navigates that. She falls in love with someone who's a different race and is hated on. I think he is a Native American, and that is just a really sad but really sweet story. And then we follow her throughout her life, and I don't really want to talk too much because I definitely think that you should go in this blind and just experience it as it is, but it was a really well done coming of age story. Our main character goes through a lot. It really shines a light on like resilience and even like finding home where you least expect it, and I just think that everyone should read this book. And I also really liked the scenery of this book. I think our author did a really good job of like her descriptions, her metaphors. She painted the picture so beautifully. I feel like it's not talked about enough, so pick it up. I think you'll like it. Next fictional book I read was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Now this book was really interesting. I definitely think it's like a literary fiction slash a little bit of a mystery because we're essentially following our cast of characters, and our main character that we start off following is a bank robber who ends up in this hostage situation that was not intended. And so we have a lot of different people that were in this hostage situation that were in the apartment when the bank robber went into the building. This book is so cute. Like it sounds like kind of intense, but it's not intense at all. Our bank robber is just like a morally gray character, not creature. And they just were put in the situation that they ended up in for a reason that made sense. And you just follow these characters and how they sympathize with each other, how they share their life with each other, and how they're dealing with a bunch of different things. And I just love Frederick Bachman for talking about life in just such a simple but beautiful way. I really enjoyed also like the police interview part of this story. I think that was so funny. Like, oh my gosh, they made me laugh out loud. And it was just great. It was almost like you don't know who the bank robber is in this situation because you're following like these police interviews. So there's like that mystery aspect because you're like, okay, wait, who did it? But it's not entirely a mystery book. But I really liked it. I rated this book a 4-star. There was just some elements that I just didn't really enjoy, but overall, I definitely think it's worth it. I think it's so fun. I love Frederick Bachman's writing, and I highly recommend this book. All right, the next fictional book I read was The Heir Apparent by Rebecca Armitage. I don't really know. This book is a woman's fiction with like a royal trope. We are essentially following our female main lead. She ends up being the next in line to rule over England. I don't really want to say how she ends up there because I definitely think you should go in blind. It was really sad. I was really not expecting to read what I read, but I think this story is so good. I rated this a 4.5 stars. I was not expecting this. I feel like before I read this book, it was definitely giving me Princess Diaries, but it's not Princess Diaries. It's so much different than that, but so good at the same time. Fictional royal family that we are following is actually very similar to the royal family, the real royal family. Like you can tell our author really took a lot of inspiration from that. I really enjoyed it. It made the book a lot more realistic in my opinion. I really liked how we learned a lot about what it would be like to be royal. I really enjoyed that part of this book. It definitely reminded me a lot of like Gossip Girl and even a little bit of Magnolia Parks because there's a lot of talk about wardrobe and stuff like that. I do want to say like there is some talk about like body image, so if you struggle with that, I definitely think that you should look up some trigger warnings. There's a couple different trigger warnings. Definitely look up some when you go into this book. And there's like a subplot of romance in this book that I really liked. I don't normally like romance, even though I feel like I read a lot of romance, but it's not the thing that makes me want to read the book. The chemistry is not there, but I feel like the chemistry was here. It was really cute. And it's not heavy. It's not really a big part of the plot, but at the same time, it's just well placed, well put there, and I really enjoyed that. But overall, I just thought this book was really good, and I definitely think you should pick it up. It's a new release, and I loved it. And I think that you should read it. You might love it too. So highly recommend. Last fictional book I read is 19 Steps by Millie Bobby Brown. Now this is also going to be in that reading vlog I was talking to you guys about that's going to be coming out in April. And this book is like a historical fiction with a subplot of romance. If you don't know, Millie Bobby Brown is an actress and she decided to write this story loosely based off her family. We are following a tragedy that is real that happened during the World War II, and it was really sad to read about. I did not know it was a thing, so it was really nice to have like that representation in this book. But overall, I felt like this book was quite boring. The way that she wrote was very interesting. I felt like the transitions that she had from each scenery that we were in was very stereotypical writing an essay transitions. And now later on, kind of took me out of the book. Like I said, I was quite bored with the book. I feel like Nellie, our main character, was really sweet and I did like her personality. I feel like the romance in this book was just like más o menos. Sometimes I just throw out that word occasionally, but it was definitely like very meh. I also think it's quite interesting because there's a ghostwriter of this book and she has like a little blurb on the back, but she doesn't really get like represented on the front of this book, which is quite interesting. So it's not like technically Millie Bobby Brown just read this. It was also someone else who wrote this. I don't know how much she had to write about this book. I did like the World War II representation in this book. I really like those books. I think that they're really good, but this one was just like lackluster to me. So I was kind of disappointed in that. And last, but certainly not least, I read, that's upside down. I read Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Now, this is a nonfiction Christian book, and this was something that I feel like I should have read a long time ago, but I'm so glad I read it when I did. And this is really good for not only like if you are a Christian, if you're a new Christian, but also if you're not a Christian and if you're interested in Christianity. The way that C.S. Lewis paves this book is starting right off the bat, like getting you used to the idea, getting you to wrap your head around the idea of God and acknowledging that there is a God, and he like kind of like walks you in to Christianity and that belief system, and then he goes over different parts of Christianity. Like he talks about faith, he talks about charity, he talks about marriage, he talks about friendship, he talks about forgiveness, he talks about a lot of different things. He even talks about like theology in this book, and he is just so smart. Like the way that he describes things, the way that he talked about things was just so well done, and he described things in a way that just makes sense. You're like thinking about it, you're reminiscing on it, you're chewing it on it later, and you're like, that was good. I highly recommend this book. If you are a Christian and you haven't read this book, read it. It's so good. If you're not a Christian and you are curious about Christianity and you're curious about this book and what he has to say about Christianity, read it. It's not gonna hurt you. So definitely pick it up. So that's all the books that I read in March. If you like me and you like this video, definitely subscribe and like and comment down below if you read any of these books. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts and your opinions as well. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.